Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures that Outperform. I'm Frank Wanda, CEO of People Productive, and I'm here with my fabulous co host, Terri Mays, a certified culture engineer. Today, we're going to be talking about more science, and this is on how deep relationships really drive team performance. So, when you look at it, this is something that people have spoken about many times in companies. I've talked about it with people over the years. If you work in environments where you have teams, you see these incredible teams and you start to realize, wow, these folks really work well together. So this is not just, hey, it's an observation. I think this is true. This is science. And I'm actually going to quickly share something with you. We'll start with this little snippet from a Harvard research study. And we'll take a look at this right now. So here is Harvard Business Review online. You can go to this. Always recommend it. Lots of great stuff. Here's an article from 2013. I read it at the time it came out. The hidden benefits of keeping teams intact. This confirmed so much that I'd come to know and understand by leading organizations and teams that I was really struck by it. But this is incontrovertible. They studied tons of teams. It's a very, very big study. It was over 1,000 teams. And so at a software services firm, a 50% increase in team familiarity, meaning relationships, was followed by a 19% decrease in defects and a 30% decrease in deviations from budget. Those are big numbers, big numbers. On audit and consulting teams, high familiarity yielded a 10% improvement in performance as judged by clients. So it's relatively hard to get those productivity gains if you want to go out and try to work on productivity on the team. But here's what's available. You keep teams together. So, Terri, let's talk about why this is the case. And I think everybody should go get that article and take a look at it, quite honestly. But we're going to give you tons of info, so stay tuned.
Yeah. So I think, this article points out some things that seem like it would make a whole lot of sense logically. And, you may have a case to make an argument against it of you don't have to have relationships with people that you work with. There's that whole crowd that feels like, we're just people that show up to do a job. We do the job and we go home and relationships aren't important. But the big elephant in the room is relationships are important. It's so important, in fact, that building relationships with your teammates can improve your individual productivity as well as the people that you're working with. So as a group, you're able to accomplish more when you have a well-oiled machine of a team that's working. So highly functional teams don't just get that way by just focusing on the work, because we're humans. We have this social part of us that demands that we pay attention to it, even in the workplace. We have to have things where we can connect with other people, where we can build those relationships in order to get that sense of belonging. We've done a whole series on belonging, but belonging is so important and it's part of that relationship building process.
Yeah, absolutely huge. I mean, Terri's on the money. Go look at the belonging series. We went through the whole thing. How does belonging start? How does it evolve? We also did a series 3 episodes ago on the self-limiting beliefs of people, teams, and organizations. High-performing teams have overcome that. They don't have these self-limiting beliefs. That's another factor that, Terri and I always prep for these episodes, but we weren't even talking about that. You could go on and on.
Yeah.
Look at these teams. They intimately know one another as professionals. They know what they're good at. They know what their weaknesses are. Their teams, they want the team to win. They have each other's back. If somebody needs support, no questions asked. There's no fear of candor. They could speak up and say, hey, look, that's not a great idea, and I'll tell you why. Nobody takes it personally. These are great teams. They're high performing. And that is why they call this relational capital. Companies have no clue what the value of relational capital is. They look at financial assets. They don't look at human assets. They don't study them. They don't have a human capital balance sheet. The reality is relational capital has huge productive value. That's the bottom line. This study proves that anybody who's run teams and kept them together knows it.
That's right. We're not just computers or robots that you can network together to get something done. We're humans. and humans are wired for relationship. That's just the way it is. So why not use that to your advantage and build a team where people can feel comfortable enough with each other and that they stick around long enough to build some deep relationships with each other because it's a place that they want to be. You don't want to be on a team where you're dreading Monday morning. You don't want to go to work. Every day you find some excuse, some reason that you can't do the things that you need to do at work. It's those are all just signals that there's something wrong with the work environment. And as a leader, you want to be aware of that. You want to make sure that you're doing your part to build that culture where people feel like they can be their authentic self, they can speak up, they can share their thoughts and ideas. When people feel like they're in an environment where they can safely share their ideas and not be told, "Oh, that's dumb," or "That's not a good idea." Nobody wants to hear that. Everybody wants to feel like they have the flexibility to speak up and share ideas because even though it may not be the best idea, that idea creates synergy where you can start to bounce off of each other. And maybe somebody else will say, "Oh, but what if we added this to that idea?" And then another person may say, "Oh, and what if we do this?" And that's how you build those great working relationships where people feel like they have the freedom to say things, even if it may feel like a bad idea to somebody else, but nobody is going to make them feel bad about it. And that's the key. That's how you get innovation going. Creative juices start flowing when people feel that freedom and that liberty to just say the first thing that comes to their mind. It may not always be the best idea, but it's a starting point. So you want to use that to get some momentum, and then everybody feels like they can just pitch in and throw out ideas. And now you're getting somewhere.
Now you're getting somewhere. And you can look at the article. They actually looked at having teams with a huge number of differences. On new teams where people aren't familiar, those differences can get in the way. But on a team that's high performing, where there are deep relationships, those differences help drive innovation.
That's
And by
right.
the way, we've talked about this. We've done episodes on innovation. It's called creative abrasion. That's what it is. It's actually been studied. People with differences coming together, kind of rubbing up against one another, a little friction, right? And cross pollinating things. And, when teams are high performing, they're much more open to hearing what somebody else has said. And they're much more willing to say, "Hey, that builds on what I did. Great." And so they could take things to a new level, like a group of people jamming, with a set of instruments where they play off one another. That's what a great team is. They can jam much better together, like a group of musicians who have played together for years. And I've seen it. This is the reality. That is the exact analogy. This is how it works. And what do companies do? They go, "Wow, these people are great. Let's put one over here. Let's put one over here. Let's put one over here." Gone. That huge asset that was producing so much and had such high productive value is actually gone. I'd pay people extra to stay on those teams. I've talked to other people about that. When you have a team that's that high performing and they actually want to move and do something else, give them some new stuff to do and pay them extra to stay together, because that is a huge productive asset. Huge.
It's
And
huge. When
yeah,
you get on a team like that, you don't want to leave because it's so beneficial, not just for the entire group, but for the individuals that are there. You start to relax into those relationships that you have at work, and you know that you can count on each other. You know what the strengths and the weaknesses are. So when you tear a team apart that's highly functional like that, it is very demoralizing. And you put people in these different parts of the organization where they don't know anybody. It's like starting over as a brand new employee. You
mhm.
really lose all that momentum that you gained by having a group that's been working together, that's been through the fire together. You've gone through some tough things together. You're able to overcome some obstacles and overcome some tough things. So once you go through that kind of working relationship with somebody, you've got war stories, you've got inside jokes. People don't always understand the things that you laugh about as a team. But when you get to that point, you really have a great functional team and you don't want to tear that apart. If
Yeah.
there's any way possible, you really do want to add on and build more teams like that one, as opposed to dividing that team up and moving people around to try to regain that synergy. It's not going to happen. You're actually doing the exact opposite.
Oh yeah, you're destroying value. It's like taking an asset and breaking it down and destroying it. I mean, this is the whole problem with the lack of this human capital balance sheet. I mean, they don't really know where their assets are in the firm. They still treat people as expenses. They're waking up, but humans are assets. They don't all have the same asset value. They don't have the same knowledge. There's no question about it. Depending on what's really important, there are people who are bigger assets. They're working on the most important thing. They really know AI. They know it really well. That's a competitive necessity where somebody else is maintaining some legacy infrastructure, and they didn't move up and move on to learn and grow. And it happens. But the reality is every one of them is an asset. It's just a degree to which they're an asset in the company at that moment in time. Humans are assets. There's no doubt about it. And, when you get that, like Terri said, you break them up, you're taking this esprit de corps. Look what else you're losing. They have very deep institutional knowledge, very deep. They have a broader network. So each of them has their own network. So they have a much bigger reach into the company when they need things. They need to get things done. They can leverage other people's personal networks into the company. And so you could just see the power of this. It's just it's so striking to me. And I've seen it in action. And we can go on and on. This is one of the most powerful things is a high performing team that's been together, that works together, that produces together. This is a huge asset for the company. And, sometimes companies, they used to sit back, I wrote about it in my book, and they take these teams with deep institutional knowledge that worked incredibly well together and decide, oh, for 1/3 the money, look, we could go get these people from this consulting firm and they'll take care of it. Wrong. They're 10%, they're producing 10% of what that team was. And now they can't measure what the loss is because they don't measure productivity and performance. So somebody could still declare victory. Oh, look, we saved X amount of money, but they're getting 10% of the work done. It was a terrible decision. Terrible. I've seen it. That's humans are expenses. We'll look at just the financials.
You can't just look at the financial piece because I guarantee you may save money in one hand, but spend twice as much on the other.
Totally.
When you start tearing apart teams that have functioned highly together, they've been together for a while, they've built some good relationships. Once you start tearing that apart, you're doing more than just impacting the bottom line. You're impacting the employees themselves. And not to mention the bottom line impacts that you're doing to your spending. It's easy for somebody that sits outside of that organization to say, hey, we can save a lot of money if we do this. But what they don't know is the inside part of that and how, yes, you may save money by bringing in a consulting company, but what's going to happen to those people that are there? What kind of morale is that going to generate for them? And now you may have more sick days. People may be out more. They may not adapt well in the new organization. They may leave the company altogether. So now you've got all this information, this institutional knowledge that's just walking out the door because they don't like what they're doing.
Yep.
So it's more than just looking at pluses and minuses from a dollar bill perspective. You really got to look at what kind of an impact is this going to have on the organization as a whole. Yes, we may save money, but what else are we spending in exchange for that savings?
You need to think about human performance. You need to understand the human factors that drive productivity and organizational performance, the human factors of innovation, how they work, how they end up driving high performance in companies. And ultimately, culture allows you to create a culture where you outperform without burning people out. That's right. The key, because you're tapping all of this real intrinsic positive energy. It's clean energy. It's burning. They're not getting burnt out. It's not stress-based energy. And you add all this to the mix. Companies still don't know the human factors that drive high performance. And, Terri and I will continue to share info. Dig in. This is the future. People are the most important tool in every company. This is it. Once you know this, you can make any organization dance. Quite honestly, you really can.
Yes.
It's a future.
It's very, very true.
Hey, Terri, I would say we should invite him to the next episode at this point. We're here every Wednesday at 3:00 Eastern time. We're covering different human factors. I think you should join the YouTube channel so you get notified. You should join the People Productive channel on LinkedIn. Go to our site there. Make sure you get notified. We post these in multiple places. But join live if you can. These are incredibly valuable insights into how human performance works in corporations. So next week, we're going to be looking at what are the different factors science says motivates workers. And we're going to take a look at that information. It'll be another good one. I hope you could join us. And thank you for coming. See you next week at 3 o'clock Eastern.
Yes. Bye for now.